Hello and good afternoon or good morning, everyone, based on where you're located. I'm John Bertoli, Head of Marketing and Partner Services at Samsung SDSA, and I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, How to Maximize ROI on Venue Experience with Intelligent Digital Technology. This is actually the second webinar we have planned for 2019, where we strive to shed light on critical business issues for organizations competing in today's highly competitive, ever-changing landscape. We are joined today by Joseph Landers, Director of Customer Experience and Innovation at Samsung SDSA, Hugh Sinnock, President of HKS Strategies, Janelle Brewer, Director of Customer Experience at Las Vegas Convention Center, and Joaquin Caseta, Deputy Director of Sales and Services at Anaheim Convention Center. A few housekeeping notes: the audience will be muted during the entirety of the webinar. We will be hosting a Q&A session at the conclusion of the webinar, so we encourage everyone to submit questions throughout the event. If you have any technical issues, feel free to reach out, and we will attempt to address those issues as quickly as possible. With that said, let's kick off the webinar, starting with Joseph Landers, who will provide some insight on the industry, followed by a panel discussion with all featured speakers.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're at around the world. We're excited today to share with you some of the accelerating and current industry trends that are going on, that are affecting both the hospitality market as well as the exhibition industry overall. Some of the stats we'll be sharing will be from both PwC and others from the Center for Exhibition Industry Research, CEIR. And on the screen now, what we'd like to share is a little bit of the key year-over-year growth statistics. We're averaging about a 2% growth in attendees. Real revenues are slightly better than that. And the overall index that CEIR tracks shows a very positive fourth quarter trend as well. The amount of square footage that is net square footage that's actually available, because the demand for B2B trade shows has been increasing, is actually shrinking. Thus, the other trends that are referenced throughout the industry and exhibition centers that have decided to expand their square footage is a good one. So as we kind of take a look at 2017 all the way from 2007 through 2018, the gross domestic product across the globe on the next slide kind of showcases that we had a major set of issues that were going on in the 2007 to 2010 time range, or 2009 time range. Gross domestic product was shrinking. We had a recession, and the industry was experiencing some significant declines. So the CEIR index really trended very negatively during that time. We had almost a 12% decrease in total attendees, and it was a real negative time for the industry. We've now since returned to pre-2000 levels. We're tracking very closely with GDP. On a positive note, we're 2% plus across all of those areas. And with of course those types of statistics and the data, what we need to be focusing on is how customers are now interacting with the world around them. The industry was not able to invest for a number of years. And now that many projects are kicking off, renovations are going, as well as the industry is reinvesting again in new technology, we need to keep pace with the way that consumers are interacting with their mobile devices, with their with their expectations on how they shop as consumers. And the trade show industry experience has been making some changes and now starting to adopt new technologies. They're engaging in some new proof of concepts with some of the technologies that are out in the market. They're succeeding with some, not succeeding with others. So what we'd like to do is share with you a little bit about the PwC outlook in terms of revenue as well. So B2B trade shows generate a significant amount of revenue for the C&E business, globally. And back in 2012, we were only at a marginal, 11.4 billion, still, sizable set of shows that was going, but it's expected to grow past nearly 17 billion by 2021. Even though our growth rate is, about 2 to 4% in terms of revenues, attendees are going to be continuing to go up. Industry shows and B2B shows are still one of the best ways to share information about current trends that are going on within each of the exhibitors' industries. And PwC estimates about a $17 billion overall industry, which means that most of the C&E businesses are competing for those dollars being spent. And differentiation of the venues, as well as the exhibition companies that are hosting these exhibitions, they're competing for the dollars of the attendees in the marketplace. So one of the things that PwC sees as a major trend in this particular space is convergence. Convergence of what happens mobile, online, face-to-face, within meetings. And mobile technology and devices are becoming increasingly the way that consumers want to interact with the show venues and be able to gather information. That's typically common, especially for millennials, but not common for every segment, whether it be Gen X, Gen Y, or Gen Z. Revenue streams also need to be changing and increasing. Advertising is going to become another piece of where the revenue is going to come from these events. Consumers want to interact with not just their mobile devices, but they also want to ubiquitously connect with the physical devices that are throughout the show venues. And those venues that are digitizing are now able to do that. And then data that's collected around all the IoT devices, whether it be a smart venue, smart lighting, the logistics, the back office support components, the operational tools that the exhibition companies use, or even the operational tools that the conventions and exhibition centers use, are all collecting data, whether it be Wi-Fi, which everyone's very familiar with, all the way to video analytics, sensors, and we'll call it maybe even RFID tags or beacon technology. In fact, a lot of that data is now being collected and shared across the platforms, and it's converging across both the mobile platform, the infrastructure platforms that the convention centers themselves use, the exhibitors' platforms, and that rich data and analytic stream can very powerfully impact the way that consumers and visitors experience these very important trade shows that we host across our industry. And the platforms that are required to support these are platforms that are dynamically changing. So three of the key trends that are really adding value today in our conversations with hospitality experts in the C&E industry are, number one, dynamic infotainment. That's the ability to essentially to pull in data outside of the venue that's relevant to the city, the airport, the transportation, the overall experience of all these visitors who come to our cities and enjoy our convention centers and enjoy these large events starts with their airport, their Uber, their taxi experience, their public transit. And being able to, dynamically provide weather updates and external data about, flight information, that's been going on for a little bit of the time at some of our convention centers, but now is dynamically being able to be displayed across a fully digitized venue as well. That being said, the integration into show schedules and the ability to geolocate and show where the next main hall event is, basically knowing where you are within the venue, how it affects your schedule, whether it be on your personal mobile device or also directing traffic throughout the show, moving from one building to the other or one hall to the next, or even finding the closest restroom with the shortest line. All this is being driven through IoT technology, integrated data, and then also the ability to pull all this data together and create essentially smart digital signage and geolocated wayfinding. So you get dynamic infotainment, geolocated wayfinding, as well as now the ability to break up this digital signage into advertising space. And that advertising space can be monetized. So, as revenues are, as we previously referenced, only growing at 3 to 4%, or 2 to 3%, the ability to then monetize some of the technology that you're investing in that create a much better guest and visitor experience now dynamically changes and also not only impacts the positiveness of the guest experience, helps them find where they want to go faster, have a better pre-show experience, a post-show experience, and essentially, provide much more engagement during the process. And what's worse than not being able to find a restroom that's clean and has a short line, especially after lunch, right? So the ability to do those types of things now, doing smart ad sales, dynamic infotainment, and geo wayfinding, all really positively impacts the way that we're able to change the overall customer experience using technology, and then use the data analytics and artificial intelligence that goes along with that in some of these complex platforms. So with that, these are the industry trends that have been accelerating. We're seeing an enormous growth rate as far as digitization of trade show environments, including convention exhibition, both private and public spaces. And I think it's important then to let the panel now. We have a few questions that we're going to share with the panel, and we have a great group of panelists, including Hugh Sinnock, Janelle Brewer, and Joaquin Quesada. And John, I think you're going to kick us off and share some of the questions and direct the panelists to answer accordingly.
Thank you, Joseph. That was incredibly insightful. We're now going to dive into the panel discussion portion of the webinar. Our first question is for Janelle and Joaquin, and that is, how are leading venues leveraging technology to improve the user experience? Janelle, we can start with you.
Very good. We're looking into everything that's been said. So basically, we're trying to get a macro GPS system so that we know the movements of our clients when they're in the building. That's not only useful for the building, it's useful for the exhibitors and show management. We feel that could be a revenue source as well for particular exhibitors that are in the building. And of course, we've had our digital screens only about 5 or 6 years in our building, so we're transitioning away from those static banners. We feel like it's going to give it a cleaner look, as a more modern look, shared experiences, and we're also looking at some projection on glass system that's coming out that will not only be an advertising sell to get away from maybe some of the banners that are on the outside of the building, some of the magnetics, but to move us into that more, I think, what people expect a modern building would look like.
And Joaquin?
Great. Certainly capturing the needs and the accommodations from start to finish is key for us. And what I mean by that is even before they get to the convention center itself, they'll be looking at technology to figure out what's the best routes. We can help even with traffic patterns through street CMS signs and such. And then as they get closer, certainly the technology is there to help accommodate where to go park, which parking structures are full, which are open, the rates and such. On site, we're taking a look at whether it's locators, how to incorporate some of our vendors with food and beverage, for example, and leveraging that piece. And then last but not least is certainly the communication that we want to provide to them prior to even them getting here and or as they leave. Just giving them a thank you, for example.
Okay, great. The next question is for Joseph and Hugh. What value do wayfinding solutions provide? I'm sorry, Joseph and Janelle, this next question is for. Joseph, let's start with you.
You want me to? I'll take first stab. I think it's number one. Wayfinding is improving the overall guest experience, the visitor experience. That's the primary reason why we're seeing the convention exhibition space adopt wayfinding technology. It decreases the amount of time the guests are spending looking for the exhibitors. It's decreasing the amount of time that it takes to find an open restroom, one that's not closed, and also it's increasing the sales for food. You're able to find the food that you want to find, and so that's also driving some revenue share increases with the usage of the the folks who you've subcontracted for the food. So I think those are the three key things. I will say on the visitor side. On the operational side, what we're seeing with the customers that we've been sharing these trends with and implementing technologies for is that operationally you can reduce some of the headaches associated with having a restroom being closed and having a sign, having to post a sign and not being able to then change the static signage that's traditionally throughout the facility. And I don't want to harp just on restrooms. It could be food court, or a particular hall is closed, or if you have multiple halls being used for two different venues or shows, the digital signage throughout the venue can mimic and align with the mobile wayfinding technology that's available. What do you think, Janelle? I think you've got your experience as well.
Absolutely. Everything you said, what we're looking at with wayfinding is, along with the food and beverage, because we do have almost a 2 million square foot convention space with possibly up to 9 to 12 shows happening at one time. We also feel that for the food and beverage provider, as they have their people on site trying to make deliveries to booths and meeting rooms, that this technology also helps them get to the right places in a quicker time. So that's one thing. We just feel like it's definitely what we want to create is an experience that helps deliver seamless and cohesive customer journey while they're here. Again, with everything being so large as they're building up in our lobbies to help find those restrooms and food venues that they just can't seem while they're on site. I'm sorry.
It makes total sense. Completely agree with you.
Okay, great.
John?
Looking back at when you started in the industry, what are some of the major shifts you've seen taking place? Hugh, let's start with you.
Thanks, John. I think to me the most dramatic is just the critical need for connectivity. As a exhibitor or attendee checks into a hotel room, the first thing they want to find out is, how do I connect to Wi-Fi? It's no different in the venue either. And I think for each of the venues, that importance, if you aren't up to date, to handle that, to give just really a good experience on connectivity through cellular and data, you're going to be left behind. It's a capital intensive requirement. It's something that may last for 3 to 5 years without being upgraded, but without it, you're not going to be competitive in today's market, and it's only going to get more critical, I feel, with 5G coming. That's going to change the whole dynamics tremendously. Over the years, a huge complaint of exhibitors has been the cost of freight, the material handling charges they're hit with. So as a result, they're looking for lighter weight materials, a lot of fabric in the design of booths. I can remember, a lot of 2 and 2.5 story hard wall exhibits being built. You don't see that as frequently anymore, and it makes sense. The other thing is, because of technology and the use of some tremendous high quality monitors, the shows, the exhibits themselves are really coming from top down, rigging displays and lighting versus building from the floor up and hanging this on the floor. It's changed that. They're not sending in as much, but it wasn't that long ago that plasma screens were so common. It was a security issue trying to protect them overnight, but Now, as the costs have come down, nobody even bothers to take screens, but that's really added to the the benefit to the exhibitor to reduce the cost of shipping equipment across country, across the ocean to get here. I think the importance of conferences within exhibits has increased. I think the need for flex space for meetings, rather than being in a four-wall meeting room, we see groups gathering, but they need to have the ability to connect, to use their tools to make a presentation. A gathering of 10 to 12, pulling some chairs together, going on a lot more frequently in almost all the shows I see. Again, the use of data, we talked about that. It's just something that nobody talked about 10 years ago. So those are some of the main things I've noticed.
Great. Joaquin, why don't you go next?
Certainly. You touch on a lot of the topics, but I think from my perspective, there's a higher expectation for bigger, better, faster, and certainly technology is leading the way. We're seeing technology in all aspects of our building, and people don't even realize it, whether it's, escalators, elevators, food and beverage, you name it, the technology is coming along with it. And in today's needs, where people have technology at their fingertips, no matter where they go, Hugh's correct. We need the Wi-Fi, the cellular, and we need to, from a building standpoint, to certainly maintain and keep up with that. I think security is another area that quite frankly has changed for all the convention centers. Taking a look at how to become more secure in today's world, and certainly technology is a big piece of that. So
awesome. And Janelle?
Not too much to add. They've touched on all the great points that we look at also as a building. Just one of the things I've seen is in our building, what we've tried to do with technology is we know everyone comes with multiple phones and the way that they're charging these throughout the building as they have their iPads and their computers. If we've actually put a lot of charging areas, every pillar that we can get, we have at least 4 charging stations on most every pillar in our building, and every wall space that we can find that has some seating in front of that, we've added those things so that they can keep connected, like Hugh and Joaquin said, to our Wi-Fi.
Great. Next question. What factors should venue managers keep in mind when embarking on a venue renovation or digitalization project? And this one is for Janelle and Joaquin again. So Janelle, we can pick up where you left off.
Sure. I think one of the major factors is communication. All of our show managers, they talk to each other, so we need to make sure that we get out in front of that and communicate accurate information to them and that we're sensitive to their needs. We definitely want to minimize any impact we have on the customers and our show management while they're here. During our upcoming renovation, we have made sure not to displace any shows by taking halls offline. Once our new building is completed, we will go in a 3-phase step by taking the north halls off and moving those shows into the new building and just making sure that is all communicated to everyone and how we're moving people around our campus while this renovation is going. So those are some of the factors. Basically, everyone wants to know how they're going to be impacted while they're here.
Great. And Joaquin?
Certainly look to the future, and what I mean by that is it's all good to make the improvements, either through the renovation projects, but you also have to remember that you have another side of the building that, quite frankly, has probably not seen a renovation quite some time. So how do you incorporate the two buildings? Because what you don't want is a state-of-the-art building on one side and then a building that is lacking on the other. So don't forget that there's, you truly need to continue to update your building, but you've got to do it in a process that allows you to seem seamlessly. So when you're going through a renovation project and you're looking at the latest and greatest, make sure that you're also going to incorporate what you can in the other parts of your building.
Great. This next question is for Hugh and Joaquin. What are some important KPIs you track as an organization to measure performance?
My experience is that any of the major contractors that work in your building, whether it's food and beverage or telecom or business services, are probably going to conduct their own customer surveys to evaluate themselves. Typically, they'll share that with the venue operator. Sometimes they'll share it with show management as well. I think that's helpful, but sometimes that's very selective. Customer experience surveys, you may interview people that didn't even they didn't buy an internet connection, so how are they going to evaluate that? And it's not always representative. I've always felt the best feedback is direct contact with the shows, and you can only do that to address issues and respond immediately. So 3 months after the fact, to get an email from an irate exhibitor to show management, it's too late to do much. So you've got to be on top of it sooner. And that's your best key performance indicator. But another opportunity is to have a third party evaluate any of those that I just mentioned as to how they're performing, and a real neutral party to tell you just how they're doing. Technology and data is providing so much information on sales per show. I think everyone was interested on a show over show basis how they did in food and beverage or telecom orders. And sharing that with show management is very valuable, can make your case. Also on food and beverage, concession stands, why it makes sense to open some and not others, depending on the, who's in the building, and all that information gives you immediate feedback as to how you're performing. But again, I can't emphasize enough that you've got to attack those challenges early on while they're in your building, not 2 to 3 months later.
Great. And Joaquin?
Yeah, I mean, certainly everyone has their surveys and such, but ultimately it's truly about returning business and new business seeking you out. And a key indicator for us is really online and today's world of technology. People don't hesitate to complain if there's a problem, and that's who you need to really gear it towards. A survey where you're going to get it from one individual, and yes, that individual might be important from a show perspective, from a guest perspective. It's the day-to-day visitors that are coming through your front doors, that have the ability to let you know how their day is going online. So
great. This next question seems to be exclusively for Joseph Planners. How can venues create a more personalized user experience through digital technology?
Well, John, this kind of relates back to all the conversation we've been having today, but really it starts with the ability to communicate relevant information to the exhibitors and the end customers, essentially the visitors within the trade show. So all that sounds great, but the best way to do it is to start slow. Pick a section, a project, a renovation that you're going through. Implement the data. Make sure that it can be implemented. Any of the technology can be implemented in a way where you can collect all the data. You should have all the rights and the ownership to secure that data, own it, be able to utilize it. And that way you maximize not just short-term investment, but also long-term investment. So you can use video analytics. You can gather information about demographics about the customers without impeding on any privacy laws or issues associated with that. You can do a digital signage wall or an LED wall. You can implement wayfinding. And, I know that some of the technology around beacons has been, tried many times, and a lot of the industry has been saying, hey, it's failed, it wasn't useful. It all boils right back down to essentially the data that is collected and that you own as a convention or an exhibition center, and being able to then utilize that data accordingly and impact and measure, measure the value. So digital can really happen, in a whole bunch of different ways. The best thing to do is engage someone who understand what the biggest issues are, prioritize around those issues. If they're operational related issues, prioritize around solutions that will maximize the return on that particular investment. If it's really about you're getting a lot of complaints about guest experience and not being able to find restrooms, or they're dirty or not clean, then we should focus in those particular areas. But the best thing to do is engage in all those areas and then prioritize around it, because there are so many different ways that digital technology can be used to modernize existing convention centers, or even be deployed in a new environment and then redeployed during a renovation project down the road, but make sure it's all aligned.
Great, thanks, Joseph. Next question is for Joseph and Janelle. What are the opportunity costs of delaying a digital renovation project? Joseph, you can kick us off.
Joseph.
Joseph, you might be on mute. Hey, Janelle, why don't you kick us off then?
Sure. So basically, in a nutshell, it's, people have options nowadays. So we have to make sure that our renovation project isn't delayed, because they can go to other venues and get what their needs are. So, and of course, the revenue lost over that time period of any delaying that we might have.
And Joseph? Yeah, I think Janelle, covered things, really well. But let me just say that in our conversations with our customers and in working with both private and public entities, delaying a digital renovation, what we've heard loud and clear is that there's a possibility of, losing a big show or a small show to a competitor, and that may be another city. It may be another venue, could be both public or private, depending on the size and the scale and the relationship that you have. It's important to work very closely, with your big exhibitors, I think, and this may echo some of what Janelle said, but I think the opportunity cost could be great, right? You could lose a revenue stream that might otherwise go to you, might go to someone else that's already, digitized their venue. I think also when a customer has a negative experience in a particular venue, regardless of the exhibitor that was hosting or the exhibition company that was hosting that particular event, they may not return to your particular convention center because they're getting a much better a better experience, potentially somewhere else. And, these are soft costs, but I still think that they're opportunity costs. And, I think you can accelerate your growth and sell more services, as well as, generate new revenue streams around digital advertising. And those can be, addressed in a number of different ways. They can be a shared revenue model. They can be passed along as a value add to attract new business. So, I think you can miss out on some of those opportunities to win new business as well.
Awesome. Our next question is for Janelle and Joaquin. Are there any unexpected benefits to digitalization? Janelle, you can kick us off.
I think that the unexpected positive benefit is that we're seeing more interactive things that are popping up just within the shows themselves. So they are attracting that younger clientele, or trying to keep them engaged with their in their show floor while they're here. So I think that's something that was unexpected that we're now looking into, and how do we create those experiences also in our building, so that that clientele will also say we have to go to Vegas, because they have this awesome digital experience there that they haven't got to experience somewhere else.
And Joaquin?
I from my perspective, it's the flexibility that it brings to a convention center, and in the convention center environment, flexibility is key. We have many shows that come through here, and every show is different. So every show requires a little bit different type of communication. The flexibility going digital allows you to, if our ROI is important to you, allows you to do some sponsorships through that factor. If wayfinding is important to you, the communication piece is important to you. It also allows you to adapt to your show manager's needs. So flexibility is huge.
Okay, awesome. Before we get to questions from the audience, we actually have quite a few that came through, which is awesome. What can we expect from 2019? And this is a question for all of the panelists who've been involved in the webinar today.
Well, you want me to start, John? This is you. I think there will continue to be a lot of disruptive activities to the industry. I think we talked about exhibit booths themselves. It may not happen in the next month or two, but I think you're going to see more innovative looks in the booths. I think you'll see booths with no walls. I think you'll see booths with no product. And I think it'll be presented visually, digitally, eliminating the need to ship product. I think that's coming. And I think you'll see some venues that are going to introduce some new entrepreneurial areas. They might not even charge for the space to allow people, for startups, to present ideas, dedicate an area on the floor for that purpose. So these are all new things that, really haven't hit, but I think are coming, and probably as early as late in 2019.
This is Joseph. I think we're going to see the trend of utilizing data accelerate in 2019. I don't know that this is really a surprise, but I do think that as the venues are going through major expansions and remodels, which we're seeing a huge increase in the amount of show space under construction over the next 2 to 3 years. As we get these new spaces with more digital experiences, the ability to leverage, collect data, and analyze that data, and apply artificial intelligence, learning algorithms, other logistics algorithms to the analysis of that data. We'll see new insights regarding ways to improve operations. We'll see new insights and investments around improving the guest experience and the visitor experience. And I think we're going to continue to uncover new ways and new hidden data value within the data that will hopefully increase the amount of revenue we're able to get as well, and really drive visitors to come back to trade shows the way that they really used to love to experience them. And I think that's really going to emerge as one of those big trends in during 2019 and beyond through 2021. I know you said 2019, John, but I do believe that's going to really transform the whole experience through 2021.
Okay, great. So now we're going to take questions from the audience. It seems like there's a never-ending list of questions, so let's jump right into it. This first one has to do with Wi-Fi and an interactive social wall. So the question is, are you providing free Wi-Fi? It seems like this question is more for Janelle and Joaquin as directors at the convention centers. With Wi-Fi, are you providing free Wi-Fi for attendees, or is it still paid? And if it is free, is it sponsored per show or altogether from an outside company? In addition, is anyone using an interactive social wall for vendors and attendees?
I'll start with the Las Vegas Convention Center. We do offer free Wi-Fi in our meeting rooms and in our lobby space. It does run on a 30-minute interval where you would be timed out and just log in again as continuous to get free Wi-Fi without being interrupted Wi-Fi and a little more bandwidth. It's $14.95 for the day as far as on the in the meeting room area, and then of course we offer the hardwire. We are looking into the digital experience. There's a couple of companies that we are working with now that will display up on the walls. It can be changed to the shows, what messages they're trying to put out, and no cost on that yet. It's kind of in its infancy, but the shows do it themselves now, basically making selfie areas, if you will, and photo opportunities. So we're looking to do that for them in the building.
Anaheim Convention Center, we do offer free Wi-Fi, not just within the building, but throughout the campus. Certainly, it's your basic Wi-Fi, and then you can upgrade from there to different levels. In regards to the displays, what we're seeing and what we're doing is we're partnering more and more with the events as they're coming in, whether they do their own displays and or they're doing it through an app. We're providing them the information that's required in order for them to be successful.
Great. Next question actually comes from our sponsor, Trade Show News Network. At TSNN, we see a trend concerning security at venues and events. Can you elaborate more on how this technology, this digitalization technology, can help a show? And I'm assuming she means from a security perspective. So how can digitalization enhance security at your trade shows?
Certainly having.
Go ahead, Joaquin.
Well, certainly having the right cameras in place and having eyes throughout the building helps quite a bit. Having the latest and greatest technology certainly is something that we are trying to take a look at the Anaheim Convention Center, what that looks like for a convention center. I think convention centers in the past, from a security standpoint, have been a little behind other types of business, but I think the importance that we've seen within the last decade has changed that. So you'll see more and more of that environment growing within the convention center environment.
Yeah, this is Joseph. I'll add on to what Joaquin said, and he's correct. You can use cameras and video surveillance or video security systems. There are advanced artificial intelligence technologies that can do facial recognition. Now, I would stress that those types of technologies, when it gets down to actual facial recognition, those need to be integrated and coordinated with local law enforcement, and you'll have to check the local statutes on a lot of those types of capabilities and technologies and coordinate with them. In addition to that, though, when it comes to digitizing the venue and having more data available, yes, video surveillance would be one side, but the actual display of information on displays, whether it be a mobile device or a tablet or kiosks or mobile kiosks or the large format displays that are throughout the venue, the ability to take over those displays and provide relevant data and information during an event, or when a security risk is uncovered and it's deemed appropriate by the operations team of the C&E venue to proactively send out those types of alerts to the teams, whether it be either operations team members or visitors or exhibitors or everyone in the case of a very urgent venue. You can even direct people to the closest exit, or even, the safest place to go. Let's say in the event of a hurricane or a tornado or whatever else, right? These are the types of things that can help, minimize, some sort of, tragic event. And that's where safety and security, whether it be natural or man imposed, could potentially be leveraged or improved with digital technology.
And to add upon what Joseph had to say, this is Las Vegas Convention Center. We're actually looking into more of an AI approach as well, with some real-time operating system platforms that basically can tell us, it tracks regardless if you have your Apple Watch, anything with an IP address, and it shows if there's any of these IP addresses and maybe some secure areas that they're not supposed to be in, back of the halls. It can identify our employees that are supposed to be in those areas, and then if there's an IP address or something that's in those areas, it alerts our security to that. They can go check it out, and hopefully before anything might happen.
Great. This next question's would be tough for me to answer as a marketer, because I always want to collect as many data points as I can on everyone who engages with us. But the question is, if you could only obtain 3 data points from your attendees and exhibitors, what would those be?
I think we should direct that one to Janelle and Joaquin mostly, but we're putting them on the spot.
Janelle,
can you repeat
feel free to pass if you need to. But if you could only obtain 3 data points from your attendees and exhibitors, what would those be?
I'm going to chime in. This is Joseph, by the way, and Janelle, feel free to add to this, or Joaquin. I would say number 1, did you have a great experience? Did the experience meet your expectations? Single most important, question from my perspective as somebody who attends many trade shows and works many trade shows as an exhibitor. That's from my perspective. What do you guys think?
Well, that's our number 1 goal, obviously. But in order to accommodate that goal, sometimes we need to find out where we need to improve. So I would be looking for some information on where our team can improve upon.
Agreed. That's absolutely. It's just how we improve, and how was your experience, and how to to keep them coming back, and how do we retain those visitors.
Great. And one more question. In regards to privacy, do you think if GDPR becomes the norm in the U.S., will this be an issue? Detection versus recognition, delegate, tracking, etc.
Yeah, I better take this one. So if you don't know what GDPR is, there's a European initiative that's been passed that basically says that all social media data needs to be treated as private out there in the marketplace. So essentially we're gonna see an accelerating trend where we as consumers will likely gain more control over our data. With a few exceptions. I think when it comes to watch lists, from a security and safety standpoint, there will be carve-outs in the legislation as the U.S. Looks at legislation and laws associated with keeping large public venues safe and secure, or even private venues. They may vary by state, so we'll need to keep close tabs on all the laws and regulations. When it comes to some of the technologies that Samsung has already implemented, using video analytics technology, we do have a stance of basically deploying solutions that are valuable with and allow consumers to be anonymous with a full opt-in set of capabilities. So most of our data is collected. In fact, all of it, when it comes to one of our solutions or technologies called NextShop, don't want to turn this into a sales pitch. Essentially, we are able to collect data around demographics, using video cameras, information about, the audience, whether they're happy, sad, their emotional state. All that can be collected and then anonymized across the entire pool of people that are captured throughout the video session. And none of the video is saved. Only the metadata is saved, so that the reports are completely anonymized, but are very valuable to you, the convention center, as well as the exhibitors. Where were the busiest areas from a heat map standpoint? Where were the choke points for traffic? Where were the longest lines? Where did we see the most traction? Where should we consider changing signage and so forth? All these types of questions can be answered. And then what were the demographics of the overall show at the different points of the day? Which digital signage got interacted with more, which ads were viewed for a longer period of time. All that can be done without knowing that Hugh or Janelle or John or Cal or Jaqueen or Joseph or Joaquin, we're viewing any of this. So I think we are well aware of the need to keep private information private, but also be able to, in large public areas, be able to gather information that's valuable without impacting those laws.
Great. We're just going to address one other question. What is the panel's experience with Beacon technology, and what value did you receive from it? Janelle, Joaquin, if you guys want to start us off, I think it's more applicable.
Sure. Right now, Beacon we found to be honestly kind of unreliable. It can't narrow things down. Depends on GPS. So we kind of are we don't use it in our building ourselves. I know some exhibitors come in and do their own beacons around their booth, which is why we're looking for a different experience, something that uses more of an AI algorithm type thing that we are looking into to put in our building. We think it's going to be more reliable than the Beacon experience that's out there.
And pretty much Anaheim Convention Center is the same way at this point in time. We're not utilizing it. We're looking for what's next out there, though.
Yeah, I'll say that go ahead, Hugh.
No, I was just going to say that what we've seen too is that the shows put them in. Las Vegas Convention Center has over 5,000 doors. It's just you just can't track everything. And what was kind of annoying is a lot of the shows just would leave them in place and not remove them at the end of the show. And but I just think it's a reliability factor. And they were being offered to people to shows probably at no cost to try it, but I don't think you're seeing that be repeated too frequently.
Yeah, and I'll add from my perspective in working with customer experience and innovation across many industries, including the C&E space. I'll say that beacons do provide some data. I do not think that the data from the beacons was collected well in most of the situations across many industries. And then, being able to analyze that and cross-reference it with other sources of data in ways that could provide, real insights. So I don't know that beacon technology is dead, but I do think that, many industries struggled with monetizing or gaining value from the data that was collected using beacons. So I'm with the panel on this. There hasn't been a lot of value, but potentially with new data analytics platforms and focus areas, I think you're going to be able to, potentially, revitalize any investment that you've already made, if you've already made the investment in beacons.
Sounds great. We're actually at the top of the hour. So thank you everyone for joining us. We hope you found this webinar educational, and a big thank you to all of our panelists. Your thought leadership on this webinar was greatly appreciated. We will be addressing any questions that we couldn't get to on the webinar offline, And we will be sharing this on-demand version of the webinar by the end of the day. So I'll be sending out an email to all of you on the line with a link to the on-demand version. And we hope you can join us for the rest of our webinars that we'll be hosting throughout 2019. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Big thanks. Big thanks to the whole panel. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.